Hey folks, this is Cold Warrior 78 again, coming to you from the out in the woods. Hot and sweaty. Today is the 4th of July. That's why I'm underneath the shade. It's a little bit too hot out in the sun to be playing like this. I wanted to talk to you about something that I think is fairly important, and that's taking care of your land. If you have or are thinking to buy some country land, there are some government programs you need to look into. Now, I am not a big fan of, hey, the government's got money, go get some. However, that being said, these are some programs that will help you do the right thing, the things that you ought to be doing for your land anyway. Now, as you can see behind me, besides that old busted deer stand, this is a very thick piece of forest. Let me pan around here a little bit and let you see what we're really talking about. For those of you who are a little bit familiar with the southeast, this is mostly pine and poplar forest. It is very thick. These little saplings grow like weeds, and they're literally right next to each other all the time. From a hunting standpoint, this doesn't do much for you. But back to the main point. The focus of what I want to talk to you about is something called the Forest Stewardship Program. Started a lot of years ago to try to get people to do the right thing by their forest properties. What it does is allow you to, when you harvest trees out of your forest, or I should say even before you get to that point, it requires you to get the help of a professional forester. Now these are guys who have a degree in forestry and are skilled in the sciences of tree growth, wildlife preservation, basically the health of the forest is their issue. Now, the job of the forester within the scope of the stewardship program is to make sure that you, the landowner, anticipates potential issues down the road and really just thinks about what you want to do with the land, that you come up with an actual plan. And he'll actually help you write that plan based on your priorities, finances, what you want to do. That plan is then literally in a notebook. It's that thick, but it helps you then plan what you're going to do with your property. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, I'll just let it grow up and it'll go back to nature and it'll be okay. Well, you see what happens when you let it go back to nature. It ain't necessarily okay. This grew up like this within about 3 years of when we had to clear cut it because we had a pine beetle issue. And so that's one of those things where you just got to get it down and get it out. And we had seeded other sections that part of our program, part of our plan was to harvest them for wood, reseed with the what they call the improved loblolly for this area. That's supposed to be the tree that grows best. Based on what I've seen, yeah, maybe it's growing, but it ain't growing as fast as it was supposed to. A lot of that has to do with a lot of other factors. But let me get back to the program for a minute. We did all these things because the forester I talked to, first off, sold me on the concept of doing the stewardship program. Cost was minimal. In fact, the government picked up some of the cost of the program. Also, it forced me to talk to the forestry guy, talk to the wildlife biologist, talk to the water and soil conservation people, so that I understood better as a homeowner and as a landowner what it is that I was dealing with. Because quite frankly, I loved being in the woods, but before I bought this land, I'd never really owned any forest property, any country land. And you can screw up things in a real big ugly way if you don't know what you're doing. This being an excellent example of it. Now, this isn't necessarily wrong, but we had to do this while we were creating the plan. And part of the research that the forester conducted that was in the plan said that this is a low index ground. The ground just isn't capable of growing huge trees that, 300 foot, 200 foot tall pine trees. Never going to happen on this land. It's too too used up. Been used in a growing cotton and stuff at least through the 30s, and God knows what all else. It was farmland through at least probably the 50s from the looks of the trees that we had to take out. So anyway, they didn't really have a plan. They were just trying to make money by growing the crops. The soil was depleted, though, to the point where it's not going to grow these huge trees that everybody thinks of when you think of these beautiful, like a German forest where the trees are, you know, bigger around than two people and they're 200 feet tall. Not ever going to happen here. What it does allow you to plan for, though, is, okay, you can't get that. What can you realistically get? Now, on the other part of the land where we actually followed the plan out, these improved loblolly trees actually are growing at a reasonable pace. They're not growing quite as fast as I would have liked, but we planted them at the beginning of a 10-year cycle of drought. Nothing's going to grow in a 10-year drought. The fact that they survived, though, shows you that it was an improvement. So this stewardship program, first off, forces you to think about what you want to do. When I was talking to the forester who was drawing this up, I said, okay, I want to initially maximize money I can get from the timber, because we were going to have to take out a lot of the trees that were there. Long story, but basically it had been high graded, cherry picked, whatever you want, and the trees that were left were not of proper health, proper quality to grow the woodlot the way we wanted to. And they weren't doing anything for the wildlife either. Most of them had maxed out as far as they were ever going to be, as big as they were ever going to get. And quite often trees that get really old no longer produce the fruits and things that animals need to eat. So I said timber production first off, and then wildlife, maximize wildlife hunting, that kind of thing. And so I got a plan that said, here's what you need to do here, here's what you need to do here. Looking at the soils, here's erosion issues you need to be aware of. Don't do this kind of stuff here, here, and here. For example, if I was going to do food plots or any kind of minor farming, I can do it in a lot of places, but there are specific places in the plan that said don't do it here. The erosion is going to be much, much too bad. So with that plan, you can then take action as you see fit, but based on some expert thought in the process, more than just, oh, well, I can go do this and it'll all be okay. Yeah, this is what happens when you think it'll all be okay and you don't have a plan. Now, the cool thing is with the stewardship program is you can get cost share. The government will help you reseed, replant trees, as long as it's within the scope of the program. So, for example, the forester recommended the improved loblolly, which is the ones that the state foresters are selling anyway. So those are the ones we planted. I was able to get a cost share from the government, split the cost of reseeding the property with these trees. Depending on what is going on in the government programs, they change all the time. You don't necessarily have to stay with a pine tree variety. There are programs to bring apple orchards and peach orchards and all kinds of fruited trees and things into. They require a lot more effort, and quite frankly, based on the soil analysis, would not have done well here. So we just went with what we figured would grow. Poplars, which is what this wonderful little thing is here to my, actually to both sides of me. Poplars tend to grow here like weeds. They grow fairly straight, fairly strong. The problem is they tend to choke each other out and they stop growing. So if you're going to manage for poplars, you need to get in there and cut out half of the stems so that the other half can actually grow up nice and strong. You have with pines something called a pre-commercial thinning. You'll have to talk to a forester about that. I don't want to get into all the details. Here's the point though. If the government will help you plan what you can do for your land and do all the scientific research to know what you got, what kind of soil, what'll grow on it best, let you make the decisions on what you want to do with it, and then help you pay for getting it in the right situation so that you are growing the right kind of trees for the property, You're maximizing wildlife potential through the planting of various kinds of plants and trees and whatever. Why wouldn't you do that? There hasn't been a downside that I have seen so far, and I've been in this program now going on 20 years. I haven't had anybody bugging me about, hey, you got to do this, hey, you got to do that. So it's one of the few government programs that will help you do the things that you think you need to do within the scope of your property without being intrusive and stuff like that. Obviously, you're going to have to invite the forester on your land. He's got to take a look. Soil guys got to come in and take a look. They can't do their research if they don't. Wildlife guys, same way. Here's what I found about it personally. They were not intrusive. They were very respectful of myself, my property, my family, our wishes. They didn't have any problem with what I was trying to do. The fact that I was trying to do the right thing for the land and for the animals actually helped out, because they went above and beyond several times trying to help me do certain things, find programs or find resources to get things done. Also, these the programs that support the stewardship program, all these little cost sharing programs, can do, again, they change all the time. I haven't looked at them in a couple of years, but they might be able to help you do things like fencing. You know, keep folks that aren't supposed to be on your land off your land. Keep animals like cows off your land. Or if you have cows, keep them in the area they're supposed to be and not wandering around through where the wildlife's supposed to be. If you are have a farming operation as well, this program can help you determine what land is best to do the farming on and what land is best to go back to woodlot and wildlife. So a lot of pluses out on that side of it. So I'm not a big bug on getting money from the government, because there's always a string attached to it. The strings attached to the various forest stewardship programs are kind of minimal. Again, I haven't found any real issues with it. I have found the positive thing that I do have now a scientifically based study of the land, of the wildlife, the trees, so I know what I can do. I know who to go to help me with certain things, because I had never met the county agent before then. I had never met any of the wildlife biologists, any of those guys. And now I've got the phone number. I can call the guy up and say, hey, here's what I'm doing. You know, here's the forest stewardship program number, because he's got a copy of what he wrote. Here's what we're doing. Here's the issue I've got. What do you think? And I can get somebody who's a real expert in the business in wildlife, take a look at it, and typically it's a desk view, because these guys are way overworked. But you know, when he's looking for a good excuse to come out to the woods, he may just say, hey, meet me out there you know, next Tuesday. Great. You know, we'll walk the land, you know, with a wildlife biologist. You know, that is a great deal. So anyway, this is Cold Warrior 78 saying, hey, get back out in the woods. Even if it's hot and sweaty, it's always a good deal. See you later. Have a good time.